What's going on, guys? Lon here from Android Authority, and today I wanted to give you guys some thoughts on the Oppo Reno 10X Zoom Edition. And with the whole 10X Zoom moniker, the main highlight of this phone is obviously the cameras. So that's where we're gonna start. It's got a triple camera setup that's similar to the Huawei P30 Pro, and I would say this is probably a pretty solid contender to the P30 Pro, at least in terms of the camera. The main camera is the 48 megapixel Sony IMX that's being used in a lot of other smartphones like the OnePlus 7 Pro, Honor 20 Pro, Zenfone 6. A bunch of smartphones are using this sensor because it's a great sensor. It's being paired with a wide angle camera and a 13 megapixel telephoto camera. The telephoto camera is very similar in construction to the one found on the P30 Pro. It's a sensor that is stacked sideways and uses a prism to refract light into the sensor. One thing that I thought was kind of strange with this lens is that the optical zoom happens at 5x, but the camera app doesn't give you a 5x preset zoom option. Instead, your options on the telephoto lens are 6x and 10x, which are both hybrid zooms. If you want to take shots at 5x, you have to dial it in manually. You also have the ability to zoom all the way up to 60x, but anything beyond 10x is purely digital at that point, and I don't think you'll really ever end up using this all that often because the image quality at such a high magnification isn't great, and it's actually really hard to frame stuff at such a deep zoom. Image quality in general though is really good. Colors aren't too overly saturated or vibrant, dynamic range is pretty solid, and there is tons and tons of detail. The 6x zoom photos are still tack sharp and crisp, and even at 10x zoom there's still plenty of detail. You do notice a slight amount of degradation, but it's really not that bad at all. It's really impressive how far something can be and you're still able to capture a clear picture of it. Even a sign that's like several blocks down the opposite end of a street is still easily readable with this camera. Low light is also pretty good with this camera, especially if you use the ultra night mode. This uses a combination of AI, HDR, and multi-frame noise reduction to produce an image that's brighter with wider dynamic range. It's pretty easy to spot the difference. The images are noticeably brighter with night mode on, and you get significantly more detail in highlights and shadows. It also only takes a couple of seconds to capture a night mode photo, so it's definitely worth using anytime you get the chance. The best part about this camera is really just the versatility. There's a lot that you can do with such a wide focal range, and this camera just makes it that much easier to get the perfect shot regardless of how far or close you are to the subject. We all know that it takes more than just a good camera to make a good phone, but it's pretty safe to say that the Oppo Reno 10X Zoom performs well in other areas too. It's got the latest Snapdragon 855 with plenty of RAM, so there's no problems with performance here. It's very fast and responsive, and it's a pretty solid device for gaming purposes too. Battery life is also really good. I can get through 2 full days on a single charge with around 50% left going into the second day. I'd show you screen on time numbers, but ColorOS for some reason doesn't make that easy, so the screen grabs of my app usage are the best that I can do. The phone also has a big, bright, beautiful OLED panel with no notch or hole punch, and this is achieved in 2 ways. One, it's using a pop-up selfie camera, but it's a little different than your average pop-up camera. This has been dubbed the shark fin pop-up because of its shape, and aside from just looking different, it does have some practicality to it. Because it's a little bigger than most other camera pop-ups, it's got extra room to house an earpiece, a front-facing flash, and a rear-facing flash. The camera inside the pop-up is a 16 megapixel camera, and it's pretty good for selfies. I like it a lot better than other selfie cameras, simply because it doesn't over soften your skin, and skin tones are also pretty natural. The second thing that Oppo has done to achieve a screen with no notch or hole punch is by using an in-display fingerprint sensor. It started off pretty rough for this technology, but I think it's gotten much better on more recent devices. The one on the Reno feels extremely quick and also very reliable. 9 times out of 10 it unlocks on the first attempt, and I would say this one is every bit as good as a conventional fingerprint sensor. Now, every phone has its flaws, and the Oppo Reno is no different. It doesn't have a headphone jack, just in case you're wondering. It also doesn't have wireless charging, and because it has a mechanical moving part, it's also not IP rated against water and dust. If any of those features are deal breakers, you're better off exploring other options like the Galaxy S10 or LG G8. If those features don't matter and you really like cameras, the Oppo Reno 10X Zoom is a really solid choice. It's available in select regions like China, Europe, and India. Don't expect it to come to the US though, because Oppo phones usually never do. Anyways, that's pretty much gonna do it for this review, guys. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. We definitely appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys in the next video.